Hey everyone, hope you're all doing very well and welcome back to another video here on the channel. In fact, this is the very first video that we're doing in 2024. I've had a few weeks off and now we're back at it, and I'm going to start things off by talking about the costs for a service at the 25-hour mark for a radio-controlled jet turbine. Now we'll get into the details about why I ended up sending it in, because it's not quite at the 25-hour mark. I'm going to bring you back over a year ago where I flew my radio-controlled airplane and my engine quit while it was in mid-flight. Now I ended up getting the plane back on the ground, which allowed me to then start the turbine up while it was on the ground. And I did confirm that there is an issue even when that turbine was running on the ground. This is not something that I did see prior to this day where the engine ended up quitting. So this is one of the major reasons why I decided to send in the turbine before its 25-hour service point was actually expired. So I think it was around the 23.5-hour mark that I ended up sending this turbine in. So not that far off from its 25-hour mark. Now, in general, you want to do this because many turbines have the 25-hour mark as a must-hit maintenance period in order to retain the actual factory warranty. Now, this engine, unfortunately, I did lose the warranty. I don't have warranty on this turbine. However, I knew that that was going to happen when I sent it in because I'm not the original owner. I'm the second owner of this turbine engine. Now, I recently received it back about a month ago, which took a little bit longer than I was initially expecting. I did have this video scheduled in December, and I had to swap it out for another video that I did. However, I ended up receiving it back, and what I did receive is, of course, the turbine engine. So this I have here. They actually just plug each one of the ports for fuel with a piece of tubing that then is crimped and heated so that there's nothing that can actually go inside there, and they put it in the bag and then they put an elastic band around. So interesting how they package it, because when you send these out and you don't have the original packaging, you're gonna have to be creative in how you make sure to get that turbine from your location at your house all the way to wherever that factory is for your radio controlled jet turbine engine. Now, another part here, and this is what I think was the primary issue, is it is the power pack. This is the fuel pump essentially for this jet turbine. Same thing, they ended up putting in a piece of tubing inside every single fuel port here to make sure that nothing can actually go inside. And in addition to those two components, the jet as well as the pump, I have another cable here for wiring. I probably won't need this as I already have this cable inside the airplane, and I don't want to fish that all the way out to put this in. I haven't decided this yet until I actually look at it and check the condition of that wire, which is what I don't currently know. So my mind might change on this. Now let's get into what this actually costs, because this is the thing that actually surprised me. Now, what I was expecting is, I know that they actually quote the 25-hour maintenance period to be about 250 USD. That's 250 American dollars. And I ended up sending it in knowing that I should be somewhere around that. Well, this is what ended up happening. We're going to run through all the costs that I incurred as I ended up going through this process, and then maybe hopefully you will learn something from this, because it's a lot more than I actually expected it to be. Let's start right off at the beginning where I ended up packing the box with the turbine. Now, before I did this, I ended up making a call to the manufacturer's rep, and I spoke with him, and he kind of gave me some directions as to what I should do in order to make sure this turbine gets there in perfect condition. That's of course what we want, because I don't want to have to pay for any damages that this turbine sees as it goes from here all the way to the factory location. So the very first thing after I got that information is I ended up packaging it pretty well as described, and then I brought it off to the local shipping company. And this is where we get our very first cost. So this ended up being first cost being $166.58 Canadian. Now, this cost also included about 2,500 Canadian dollars for insurance, just in case something happened with this engine. I would be okay if I got $2,500 back for it. That's what I estimated the current value is if I had to go out and buy another one that was used. I probably would expect to pay somewhere around there, and this is something that you'd have to decide on what you want to do. The manufacturer is more than likely going to recommend that you insure the turbine for the full amount to buy a brand new turbine should something go missing or wrong with that shipment. What I elected to do is to pay what I thought was worth it for this turbine if it ended up getting lost. I would be happy with that $2,500 that I had it covered for. What I realized is that trying to go up to that amount that it was actually worth if I were to buy it brand new, that would be considerably more than the $166 that I ended up paying. So once I got that thing shipped for that price, it ended up landing at the destination of where I shipped it to, which also incurred a cost for duty as it crossed the Canadian into the American border, and that was $55.87 American dollars there for that. Now I had the work done, and this took a span of about, I would say, 8 weeks or so for that to kind of make its way through their process. And during that amount of time, I had 2 bearings that were replaced. I had 1 ceramic igniter that was replaced, and the fuel pump. The bearings were $86 each. The ceramic igniter was $80, and the fuel pump was $110. Now I need 2 bearings, so that meant it was $172, meaning my total for American parts in American dollars is $362. Now, this would also take about 4 hours for them to go and install all those parts, and then they actually quote about an hour of labor to do the necessary work to get that thing rebalanced. So for the rebalancing of that and that work to get that done was a total of 5 hours, and the rate there for the 5 hours is $250 American dollars. Once that work is done, it would cost $60 American to ship that turbine back to where I live, and the total there would be $672 US plus the $55 that it would otherwise cost for the duty charges when this turbine landed in USA. So that meant it was a $720 US charge for all of that work to be done. Now I converted this over to Canadian based on what I actually got charged, and I was actually charged an exchange rate of $1.41.5, and this was through PayPal. Again, I was very surprised that it was that high, because when I looked at the time, it was about $1.36 or so for the exchange rate from US to Canadian dollars. Convert that 720 USD to Canadian, and I get 1,030.20 cents. So that's quite a bit already. And then the last part of this is when it ended up landing here in Canada again, I got hit with yet another duty charge, and that duty charge was $88.67. Now the grand total cost to have all this work done, get it from Canada to the US, I think it actually went to Mexico and back to Canada, was $1,285.45. Now I want to put this into perspective because I was not anticipating a significant shipping cost to get the turbine out there and back again. That costed $419.21 Canadian, and it was only insured for $2,500 one way. I don't know what the actual insurance rate would have been if it got lost on the way back into Canada. I'm sure they actually have it covered for some amount there. I'm not certain what that is, and I couldn't find it when I ended up looking through the documentation. So this is to give you, a perspective of what that $400 is. It's 32.6% of the overall cost that it was to get the job done, where parts were the most expensive at 40% of the overall cost. Essentially, for the guys that do not live where your turbine must go to actually get this work done for the maintenance period, you will have to consider all the different charges that you're going to incur from shipping alone. Shipping being upwards of 30 to 40% of the total cost of the job to be performed on your specific turbine. And of course, that depends on what you need done. If I didn't have an issue with the turbine, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't need this fuel pump, which would have actually taken out quite a bit. It would have been $110 American there, because I don't think there's any labor that goes into it. They don't have to install this or anything, any labor to do anything with this specifically. So that's the only amount of cost that you'd be able to reduce from the total that I had here. Well, guys, I found this quite interesting. Not exactly what I was expecting, but now the fun begins. Now I'm going to go and take this turbine and I'm going to start to mount it back in the plane, start to plumb it up. Then I'm going to get that fuel pump back in the airplane, and then I'm going to start to get the fuel flowing through all the lines again so I can bring that fuel right up to the turbine, and then it'll be ready for its first start since that work was done. Can't wait for that, guys, to be able to fly this again this summer season. Hope you enjoyed the video. As always, like the video if you do, and don't forget to hit that sub button so I can see you guys in the next video. Lots of things coming. Hope you're there to see it. Have a good one.